Hi, I'm Corey, and this is Creating with Scraps. Welcome. Today I'm going to show you a project that's really a scrap buster, but I was recently making some, and I had mentioned to you folks that I'd found a second bin, so I needed to do a Scrap Busters 2 video. And this technically should go in there, but I was also recently making a scrapbook idea book for a very kind lady who's supporting my readers, and I wanted to include these, and so I thought, well gosh, since I have this out, I'll just show you now. And essentially what we're making is a paper clip that can be used over the top of a page, over a pocket, or the side of the page. And that paper clip item has a hidden pocket, or a place for, it's not a hidden pocket, the pocket's right out there, but it has a place for a journaling card or a spot. And so I'm going to show you quickly how I make these. They are perfect for scraps. I use scraps for the tags, scraps for the pages that go inside, the offcuts of our journaling pages, and then scraps to make the bases. All right, I do it in a series of steps, and the reason I do that, here, let me show you a couple of them before I go on. You can open it on the right or the left, and then I just put in some folded up paper as a journaling spot. They're very flat, as much as a paper clip can be flat, but they're very flat, and they're not time consuming to make, which is also really nice. And you can use even the smallest bits of scraps if you choose to, little bits of lace and such on when you're making these. They can make them as long as you want or as short as you want. This one I think is 3. This one is probably 4.5 inches, just depending on what you need and what you want to do. This one, I didn't put a little side pocket on it. I just made it a paper clip, just a fun, over the pocket kind of a paper clip, and I sewed around the edges. So it can be just something to hold something else in place if you choose. Okay, I'm going to do this in, here, this one was kind of like that fold over piece that we did for the tuck spots on the side. I did the same idea, but I've got 2 little tuck spots on this one, and it is a paper clip just like the others. They're fun, they're quick, great scrap buster item, and you can tuck them in your own journals, of course, but you can also send them in cards and letters, and they even make a great bookmark. All right, I am going to go really quickly over how I make these, because I imagine somebody will ask, or maybe it's new to you, and so that's not a bad thing. And I do that with you by starting with some offcuts of cardstock, the thinner cardstock, and a punch. And I'll punch a whole bunch of these shapes. Sorry, off to the side there. I'll punch a whole bunch of these shapes, and I'll have them as bases. And then I will come in with my ink blending tool, and I'll ink the edges of these bases. And then my next step is, and I use these most often, though there's many others. This one is Dark Room Door rubber stamps, and this one's the number medley. And Kerry from Whichcraftdoyoudo made these stamps, and they're called Documented. And these ones are a great size and function for this type of a purpose. And what I do is I'll come in and lay out some of my tags that have already been punched. And I'll ink up one of the background stamps. And a lot of times what I'll do is just, I don't want the background to be dark, so I'll do my primary stamp off to the side, and then I'll come in and stamp secondary and third and so on, all the way down there, so that it's not super dark. Then I will take one of the smaller stamps, and like this one's an autograph type stamp, and I'll come in, and this is VersaFine Clear, but any archival ink or clear ink, whatever, will work just great. And I'll come in and I'll stamp the tops of these. Okay, I'll come in and I'll stamp several of those. Then my next step, I hadn't inked these, I grabbed this from the uninked pile, but I would ink the edges here. I'll just do this one for a sample. Come in and I'll ink the edges really quickly because I like the way it finishes off the look. All right, then I take one of my circles, and the way I do these, my little circle tab pieces at the top, is I get a scrap of, I like craft cardstock for this, but anything will work. And I'll use my ground espresso ink just because I like the color. And I will take the scrap and I'll ink the whole thing pretty much. I'll ink all the way along. And then I'll come in with my circle punch and I'll punch a whole bunch of these. I'll use that whole scrap up so I can throw this extra bit away, and I'll punch a bunch of these. Then I will grab my ink again and I'll go around the edges. So I don't know how well you can see that, but it gives the edges just a more finished, little bit darker look. Finally, I will come in and I'll do this in steps. I'll do several at once. And then I'll put a little bit of glue and I'll glue this. Is there only one there? Yeah, there's only one there. And I'll glue this piece on top. That way I don't get the text on my circle if I don't want the text. If you wanted the text on your circle, then that would be certainly fine. And I'll come in with a smaller hole on my crocodile and I'll punch a hole. And there you go. That's the process I use for making those little itty bitty tags. And then when I'm ready to sew them on, I'll grab little bits of lace from my scrap bin and I'll, cut those down or make them the right size. That was just an offcut from the doily cover that we made. Okay, and I'll grab a bulb pin and I'll pin these together. And now they're ready to go on top of my paper clips when I'm done. And so then I'll have a whole stack of these ready to go. So that's that process. To make these, what I do, the first step is grab some paper clips. Now you can certainly use these, big 3-inch, maybe 2.5, 3-inch paper clips, but I found that you really don't need to. Even this long one, because of the way I put it on, these are just your standard large paper clips, and they're 2 inches. You could even use small paper clips if you chose. And this is also a really great one for those if you purchased it like I did with the little divots and you didn't want that showing, if you're doing a paper clip tag that most of your paper clip is showing. Well, this one doesn't show at all. So if you've got one that's maybe not as pretty as others, this is a great project for that. And like I said, even this large, 4.5 inch tag, it holds nice and snug with this paper clip because of the way we put it on. So any paper clips will work, is my whole point there. I grab a whole bunch of paper clips, or as many as I need for the project. And again, you do not have to use the larger ones, but if you want something bigger or heftier, you certainly can. Grab the paper clips, and then this is one of my favorite ways to do this. I use that little fabric bowl I have, bits and scraps and leftover tiny pieces that I save, and I'll come in and at the paper clips have 2 curves on one side and one on the other. That's the one you want to put your tag top. You absolutely can tie this in a knot or tie a bow around it, or however you like to keep your paper clip flap on top, I guess, your ribbon flap on top. But I generally tend to sew it because it's flat and because it helps later on when I want to attach this bit to it. It gives me some place to put it. So I will fold this in half. I'll use you can use a single layer, you can use double layer. Again, this is just a great way to use up those little itty bitty bits of lace that you might love or have. And so then I'll lay a bunch of these out like this, and then I sew it on my machine a straight line. You could use Fabri-Tac if you choose. It works. And again, you could tie it or staple it. You know what? For the sake of having it right here, let's staple this one. If I can, let's see if I can do that. It's challenging at best, but to reach around a light or a camera tripod and do it. Okay, here you go. So that's stapled. That worked just fine. I'll do a whole bunch of these so that they're ready to go when I'm ready for the next step. All right, now you can tuck just about anything you want in there. I don't know if I said that on the last take or this take, but you can scrap pieces of paper, journaling cards, but you can also tuck things like tickets and tabs and vocabulary cards. And so I would make it to the size that I would need to house this particular item. And you don't have to score, you don't have to measure if you don't want to. Super, super thin paper is okay. Just be careful that you don't tear it. Somebody asked me recently, and I'll show you right now so that you can see what I'm talking about, why I have 2 paper trimmers down here. All right, this one, am I in frame? This one I like because it's got 6 inches. Now it's really wide right here, so if I'm cutting thin strips, it's kind of a pain, but it's 6 inches and I use 6 inches a lot, so I like it for that. But this other one, and I'm probably gonna bump the tripod as I take it out. But this other one, I love this trimmer, but it only goes to 4.5 inches. Well, I've marked it at 5, but you can see right here, this is super narrow. So if you're in the market for a paper trimmer, keep all of your needs in mind. I just use both. But this is not even an inch, darn it, sorry about that. This is not even an inch wide. So when I put smaller, narrow things in, it's real easy to hang on to and hold. All right, okay, so I was getting out the paper trimmer for a reason. I was showing you that. All right, I want this one, let's say I want this one 4 inches. So I'll trim it to 4 inches. Now I could tear the edges if I want, and the edges could be uneven. That's absolutely fine. But for the sake of ease here, I think that's 4. I can't even see it. All right, I'll trim it to 4 inches in length. And I'll stick these over in the scrap bin. I want this about 1.5 inches wide. You can see this vocabulary card is 1.5 inches. And the beauty of this is you don't have to measure. You can just kind of guesstimate. So you're gonna fold it in thirds. And if you want it to open on the left, this would be your top. If you want it to open on the right, this would be your top. My point is you can fold it any way to have whichever opening you want. And is that 1.5 inches? No, yeah, that is 1.5 inches. So I am going to do it like this, all right? And this is where I would ink. I really like that one better. You know what? I do, I like that side better. So I'm gonna do that. And I like the fact that I don't have to tear this because it's already a bit raggedy. So now I'm going to go and ink. And again, when I'm doing really thin, using really thin paper that I want to ink, I'll grab a heftier piece of file folder or cardstock or something and use it up to the edge, and it allows my ink to work a lot better, a lot quicker. I don't have to spend as much time doing it. All right, so I've inked my edge and I'm ready to go. Now what I do is, let's see, I had several of these paper clips off to the side. I had already sewed them in advance. Okay. So this one, it's just a piece of sari silk. This one's some ribbon in sari silk. This one's some lace in sari silk. And all of these are just scrap bits. I'll just use this one. When you're putting your paper clip on, you want the longer loop to be in the back. The center panel of your fold, and you can see I didn't measure this, I didn't score this, but you want the center panel to be your back. And so you're going to put the larger loop, or longer loop, it's also larger, but that's going to go down on the back side. So when I'm clipping this over the top, the front or smaller loop is going in that center panel. And then I tuck it down right to the edge and just about in the center. Then I take a piece of packing tape. Now you can glue it, but I find this so much faster and easier. I take a piece of packing tape, and I don't go all the way up to the very top. And the reason I don't do that is because I like to sew these. If you're gonna glue, make it go up to the top. If you're going to sew, then I leave a little bit of a space. And this holds my paper clip where I want it to be. You know, see it, it's not in the way, but my paper clip isn't wiggling and it's not gonna come out unless I wanna, pull really hard. Then this piece here, whichever side you want the opening on will be your last fold. So I want this one to open to the left, so the left page will fold down to the center. And I don't use a ton of glue because, like I said, I sew these. But if you're not going to sew it, then just use quite a bit of glue and glue it on down. All right, and then this top piece just folds over like this. Now, I go in with my sewing machine, and I don't have a problem. I don't use a zigzag stitch because that's a little bit harder, but I just go slow, and I stitch right over it. It's almost like stitching over a pin, but I'll just stitch right over the top and the bottom. And that, my friends, is all there is to it. Now I have a place for this particular journaling to open. That's too funny. Why don't we open this up and see? Now you can glue it. Like I said, you don't have to sew this by any means, but if you choose to sew it, you just kind of tuck it in right there. And that's all there is to it, paper clip. I was gonna show you a variation. So if I wanted this particular kind, well here, it doesn't even have to be we'll just use this Junior Latin Reader, I think. And I'm going to tear the bottom because this is really old. And I'm going to tear the top. Oh, I didn't do that very well. Let's try that again. Okay. Now, let's say I wanted this kind of a fold. All I do is fold my paper again to about the depth that I want. And instead of matching it up here, I'm going to make it, whoops, a little bit longer and fold it over a little bit further. Okay, so that when I've folded this, the right edge or the top edge hangs past my first fold. And now I can just fold it back for a tuck spot. And I want that torn too, because I want the print to show and not the blank paper. And then I'll fold it back, and then I'll fold it on itself. All right, and I'll ink that just so you can see it, because it's not really clear. And you'll be able to see the edges. Okay, there's one, and let's ink this one so you can see that too. It doesn't stand up against itself if I don't ink it a little bit. All right, and that's the other. So if you were wanting to make that before you glue your paper clip in, when you're just making your fold, again, I want the length in the back of the center panel. And where did I put the tape somewhere? Ah, here it is. Just a little scrap of packing tape. A little bit of glue. Glue, and then I fold it down like this. And again, I will sew the top and the bottom, but you can see here, where's that card? I can tuck. I've got a deeper tuck on this side, and then the shallower tuck on this side. So there you go. That is today's, it's not really a flip, flap, and fold, but that's today's project, a scrap buster item. And they're a lot of fun and a great way to use up scraps and make a great addition to just about any journal. Thank you for watching. And the journal that I recently finished, once I've got confirmation that the lady has received it, I will share that video with you, because I've created the video like a quick walkthrough kind of a thing. So I'll share that with you shortly. All right, take care and happy creating.